There are football transfers that make sense immediately. A superstar scores 40 goals, wins trophies, dominates the biggest competitions in Europe, and suddenly a massive transfer fee feels almost inevitable. And then there is
Diomandé,
a 19-year-old winger who only a little over a year ago was playing for Leganes, a player who had barely begun his professional career, a player who had never played a Champions League match, and yet in August 2026, Real Madrid completed his signing from
RB Leipzig,
in a deal reportedly worth up to 140 million euros. That number is enormous, but the fascinating question isn't simply is
Diomandé
worth 140 million euros. Why did his price become so high in the first place? Because when you understand his story, the number begins to make a little more sense. This isn't the story of a player who suddenly became expensive. It's the story of a footballer whose value exploded because almost everything about his development happened at extraordinary speed. And this is how
Diomandé
went from Abidjan to the United States to Spain to Germany and eventually to Real Madrid.
Diomandé
Was born in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire in November 2006. His football journey was already unusual because his development did not follow the traditional path of an elite European academy. Instead, he eventually moved to the United States and spent a crucial period developing at DME Academy in Dayton Beach, Florida. From 2022 to 2024,
Diomandé
developed there, and the academy quickly recognized that there was something different about him. He wasn't simply a fast young player. He had the technical ability to combine that speed with dribbling, creativity, and finishing. DME later described him as a player with exceptional speed, skill, and vision, and his performances started attracting attention. He wasn't just participating, he was producing. At DME, he became one of the standout young players in the program, earning national recognition and scoring throughout the UPSL playoffs. His rise was beginning, but nobody could have predicted how quickly it could accelerate because Europe was coming. In late 2024, Leganes signed
Diomandé,
and this is one of the most important parts of the entire story because Leganes didn't sign an established star. They signed an 18-year-old prospect. The club officially described him as a promising Ivorian attacker who stood out for his speed, quality, and vision. And then something happened that changed everything.
Diomandé
Didn't need years to adapt. He moved rapidly through the system and eventually made his La Liga debut in March 2025. And who was the opponent? Real Madrid. Imagine that you are 18 years old. You have only recently arrived in European football, and your first major opportunity comes against one of the biggest clubs on the planet. But
Diomandé
didn't look completely overwhelmed. He showed exactly the qualities that would later make him so valuable: speed, dribbling, aggression, and the ability to eliminate defenders. He eventually scored twice in 10 appearances for Leganes and added an assist. Those numbers weren't superstar numbers, but that isn't really the point. The important thing was what those performances demonstrated. He could take the qualities that had made him exciting as a prospect and translate them into senior football. That is a completely different test. Lots of young players look spectacular against players their own age. Far fewer can enter La Liga as teenagers and immediately create problems for experienced defenders.
Diomandé.
Did it, and suddenly Europe's scouting departments were paying attention. In July 2025, RB Leipzig moved. The German club paid Diomandé's release clause to take him from Leganes. Leganes confirmed that Leipzig had paid the full termination clause and that the Spanish club retained a percentage of future value. This was classic Leipzig recruitment. Find a young player before his value reaches its peak, develop him, give him first team football, and if everything works, sell him for a fortune. But even Leipzig probably couldn't have expected what happened next. Diomandé arrived in Germany at just 18, and instead of spending a long period adapting to the Bundesliga, he exploded. In his first Bundesliga season, he became one of the most exciting young attackers in the country. He scored, he assisted, he created chances, he attacked defenders, and perhaps most importantly, he became trusted. By December 2025, he had already scored 7 goals and provided 4 assists in all competitions. He even scored a hat-trick in Leipzig's 6-0 victory over Frankfurt. The player who had only recently been trying to establish himself in Spain was suddenly one of the first names on Leipzig's team sheet. That is when the valuation started changing dramatically. By the end of the 2025-2026 season, Diomandé had produced 13 goals and 10 assists in 36 appearances across all competitions for Leipzig. He also won the Bundesliga Rookie of the Season award, and his performances helped Leipzig finish third and return to the Champions League. Think about how quickly this happened. Leganes 10 first team appearances, then Leipzig 36 appearances, 13 goals, 10 assists, Bundesliga Rookie of the Season, Champions League qualification, and he was still only 19. That combination is extremely valuable because when clubs buy a player like Diomandé, they aren't only buying what he is, they are buying what they believe he could become, and that's why his price becomes complicated. So what exactly are clubs paying for? First, explosiveness. Diomandé can attack space incredibly quickly, but speed by itself isn't enough. There are countless fast footballers. What separates Diomandé is what he does once he reaches the defender. He can slow down, change direction, shift the ball, accelerate again, and attack the next space. That makes him extremely difficult to defend one-to-one. Second, dribbling. He doesn't simply run around defenders. He can manipulate them. He can change the rhythm of an attack, and that is incredibly important for a winger. A player who can consistently beat his man changes the entire geometry of a defense. Suddenly, another defender has to move across. That creates space somewhere else. And that's where Diomandé's creativity becomes important. Third, versatility. Although he is naturally associated with the wing, his attacking qualities allow him to operate in different positions and attacking situations. And this is particularly important at Real Madrid, because Real Madrid don't simply need another player who can stand on the touchline. They need attackers who can move, players who can interchange positions, players who can create advantages, players who can give the team another way to attack. Diomandé offers that, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons behind the transfer. Football isn't just about buying the best player available, it's about buying the player who solves your problem. Real Madrid have enormous attacking talent. Vinicius Jr., Kylian Mbappe, Rodrigo, and others, but balance matters. If most of your greatest attacking threats naturally prefer certain areas, opponents can eventually learn how to defend you. Diomandé gives Madrid something different. A direct, explosive right-sided threat, someone capable of stretching the pitch, someone who can isolate defenders, someone who can attack from wide areas but also drive inside. And suddenly Madrid have another attacking weapon. That's why his signing is more logical than the 140 million euros headline initially makes it appear. Real Madrid aren't paying 140 million euros for the player who scored 13 goals last season. They are paying for the possibility that those 13 goals are the beginning, not the peak. Then came the 2026 World Cup, and this was another enormous moment in Diomandé's rise. The teenager arrived at the tournament representing Côte d'Ivoire, and instead of looking like a young player simply happy to be there, he looked like someone who belonged. He became one of the important attacking figures for his country during the tournament, and that matters enormous for a player's market value, because club football shows you what a player can do over a season. International football shows you what happens when the pressure becomes completely different. Millions of people are watching. There is no hiding. One bad performance can define a tournament, and one great performance can transform a career. Diomandé's World Cup experience added another layer to his profile. Now clubs weren't simply looking at a talented Bundesliga teenager, they were looking at a young international attacker who had already performed on football's biggest stage. So now we reach the number 140 million euros. Is Diomandé currently a 140 million euros player? That's debatable, but transfer fees don't work like supermarket prices. There isn't a universal price tag attached to a player. The fee depends on age, potential, contract length, club finances, competition for the player, and most importantly, whether the selling club actually wants to sell. Leipzig had enormous leverage. Diomandé was young. He was under a long-term contract. He was coming off an outstanding debut season. He had international experience, and Europe's biggest clubs were interested. So Leipzig didn't have to sell cheaply. Real Madrid had to convince them. And when one club believes a player can become world class, the price can become enormous. That is exactly what happened. Real Madrid reportedly agreed a deal worth up to 140 million euros. The base fee has been reported around 125 million euros, with additional bonuses potentially taking the package higher. Real Madrid officially confirmed the transfer on August 6, 2026, and suddenly young Diomandé became one of the most expensive teenagers football has ever seen. But here's the part that people often miss. Real Madrid aren't buying certainty, they are buying probability. That's the gamble. At 19, Diomandé still has weaknesses. He hasn't played hundreds of Champions League matches. He hasn't won multiple Ballon d'Ors. He hasn't scored 40 goals every season. He is not the finished product, and that is precisely why this transfer is so fascinating. Real Madrid are essentially saying, we believe the player you see today is only the beginning. They are paying for the next 5 years, the next 7 years, the possibility that this teenager becomes one of the world's elite attackers. And if he does, 140 million euros could eventually look cheap. That's how football's transfer market works. Look at players who are expensive teenagers before becoming superstars. The initial price can look ridiculous until the player becomes worth 3 times as much. But the opposite can also happen. That's why this is a gamble, and Real Madrid have just placed a gigantic bet. Perhaps the craziest part of the entire story is how quickly it happened. In 2024, Diomandé was an 18-year-old prospect joining Leganes. In March 2025, he made his La Liga debut. Only months later, Leipzig came calling. In Germany, he became Bundesliga Rookie of the Season. Then came the World Cup, and now Real Madrid, the same club he faced when he was just beginning his professional career, the same club that watched him as an unknown teenager playing for Leganes. Now they have signed him. And that tells you something about the speed of modern football. A player can go from prospect to wonderkid to superstar before the rest of the world has even finished learning his name. So, why is Yan Diomandé so expensive? It's not because of one goal, it's not because of one tournament, it's not even because of one spectacular season. It's because everything has happened at once. He's young, he's explosive, he's technically gifted, he's productive, he's adaptable, he's already an international. He's already proven himself in multiple countries, and most importantly, he has enormous room to improve. That's the commodity modern football clubs fear missing out on. Not the player who is already great, the player who could become extraordinary. And that is exactly what Real Madrid believe they have found. Yan Diomandé is not 140 million euros because he has already achieved 140 million euros worth of football. He is 140 million euros because Real Madrid believes the best version of Yan Diomandé hasn't even arrived yet. And now the pressure begins, because going from Leganes to Leipzig was impressive. Going from Leipzig to the Ivory Coast national team was impressive, but going from a 20 million euro level prospect to a reported 140 million euro Real Madrid signing, that changes everything. The expectation, the scrutiny, the pressure, every missed chance will be analyzed, every dribble will be replayed, every goal will be compared to the price tag. And every time Diomandé steps onto the pitch wearing that famous white shirt, football will ask the same question: was he really worth it? Only time can answer that. But one thing is already certain: Yan Diomandé's rise is no longer a story about potential, it is now a story about expectation. From Abidjan to America to Leganes to Leipzig to the World Cup and finally Santiago Bernabeu, Yan Diomandé has arrived and Real Madrid have just bet 140 million euros.